Finally, it's worth noting that tuples can be nested. You can have a tuple of tuples. That sounds kind of weird, but it makes some logical sense. We said before that a tuple can have any type of data as some of its values, and a tuple itself is a type of data. So you could have a tuple made of tuples. You could have a tuple made of tuples made of tuples made of tuples. One way to do that is to create some tuples like we've done here on lines 1 through 3, and then create another tuple using those tuples as the values. So here my tuple 1 becomes the first value of my super tuple, my tuple 2 becomes the second one, my tuple 3 becomes the third one. When I print it, we see what we might expect. The outer parentheses designate the entire tuple. Each set of inner parentheses designates one particular part of the tuple, or one particular subtuple. The commas differentiate those inner tuples, and so we end up with a tuple made of 3 tuples, each made of 3 numbers. What's more, we can also do that all in one line. Here, for example, we create my supertuple, we start with a parentheses, and then a second parentheses, which tells the computer we're starting a second tuple inside of the tuple that we're already creating. The close parentheses defines that first tuple, but we're still inside those outer parentheses, meaning we're still working on a bigger tuple. The comma tells the computer that we're about to have another value, and so we create 2 more tuples, also separated by commas. It isn't until the last parentheses that the computer closes the supertuple, and the result is the exact same as we saw before. One big tuple, specified by the outer parentheses, made of 3 smaller tuples, specified by each set of inner parentheses, separated by commas. This is also a good example of why I recommend always using parentheses when you're defining your tuples. Here, we could have left off the outer parentheses, and it actually would have been the same. But if we'd left off all the parentheses, then instead of 3 tuples, each with 3 values, we would have gotten 1 tuple with 9 values. So again, I always recommend using parentheses when defining your tuples, even though you don't technically have to. It keeps things organized and keeps things easier to read. Now you might be wondering, how do we access an individual value inside of a nested tuple? Before we've used brackets, but brackets aren't going to get you both which tuple and which item from the tuple that you need. The answer is that we just use 2 sets of brackets. The first one specifies which tuple we want, and the second one specifies which value from that tuple we want. And this isn't really a special syntax. When Python encounters this line, the first thing it tries to do is resolve my supertuple sub1, or find the item in my supertuple with index 1. Python is 0 indexed, so that's my tuple 2, which has the values 4, 5, and 6. So now it basically replaces the first part of that statement with the tuple 4, 5, 6. And now it adds on the 0 to the end. Again, the values are 0 indexed, so 0, 1, and 2. And so the 0th value of this tuple is 4. And so 4 would be printed to our output, which I forgot to copy in. So if we visualize a nested tuple kind of like we're showing it here as a 2-dimensional matrix of values, then our first bracket gives us our row, and our second bracket gives us the column. But it doesn't jump straight to that value. Instead, first it grabs the entire row, and then it grabs that column from that row. We could take this further. We could have a 4 or 5 or 6-dimensional tuple, in which case we would just use even more parentheses at the end to access certain values.